John chapter number 3. So again, my book, we were talking about that just a second ago. I'm 1 John, John Jr. 2 John, and then John Freckleton's 3 John. You got it. Wait, let's see how 1 John or 3 John starts out. Doesn't it say like my beloved children? All right, let's see. 3 John, you just keep flipping through there. 3 John, let's see. There's the page. The elder unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. I guess you are the elder. Yeah, of the three of us, you're the eldest. All right, 1 John chapter 3, and we'll be in verses 11 and 12 this evening. Verses 11 and 12. Speaking of love, it's like you guys know the same God that I know. Who picked In My Heart There Rings a Melody? It's like were you in my living room?
No.
Wait, are you in the household of God?
Yes, I am.
Household of Pastor John? In my office?
We haven't sung that in so long.
That's a great song. But look at verse number 11. 1 John chapter 3 and verse number 11. And it says, for this is the message that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. There's a bunch of times in the Bible when it tells us we got to love the brethren. It's almost like we have a problem with that.
I don't think we do here.
The Bible says I have to love you. It doesn't say I have to like you. Right? Because we just see it right here that you got to love the brethren, that we should love the brethren. And so we'll talk about that for just a moment, and then we'll get down to verse number 12. So stick something in 1 John chapter 3, a piece of paper, one of your ribbons, something. Or do what I do. Here's what I do. Let me give you a little pastor trick. All right? I take a couple of pages of my Bible and I fold it over like this. And then I flip over, and there's my spot saved for me. Okay? Just don't crease it. Okay? Don't crease it. So hold your place there. Let's go to John. So not even 1st, 2nd, or 3rd John, but go to John. So who would be John in the church? David? John chapter 3. You know what's wrong with this crowd is no small thing. All right, John chapter 13, and we'll look at verses 34 and 35. John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. All right, so the Lord is speaking, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. And so, like I said, it's almost like there's a problem. Now, turn with me to John chapter 15. You're in John 13, go to John 15, and look at verse number 12. Again, the Lord is speaking. He says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So twice in just a couple of chapters, the Lord has said, I'm giving you a commandment. You know, if the Lord gives a command, it would behoove us to obey. All right, go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter number 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter number 4. So kind of back in the book, not all the way in the back, but kind of back. If you hit Timothy, you went too far. 1 Thessalonians chapter number 4. And verse number 9. So Paul writing to the church at Thessalonica, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 9, but as touching brotherly love, you need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love one another. So who taught brothers to love brothers? We're taught of God. All right? Who was giving the commands in John? Jesus. Who's Jesus? God. So God has been teaching us that we need to love one another. All right, 1 Peter chapter 1. Are you guys taking notes? How many verses is that now? Yeah, 1 Peter chapter 1, chapter 22. 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 22. So you're in 1 Thessalonians, go back towards Revelation again a little bit further. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 22. Seeing you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that you love one another with a pure heart fervently. All right, so how are we love one another? Fervently. That's with zeal. That means I have to like you in loving you. Fervently means again and again and again and again with passion. The effectual, fervent prayers of a righteous man. So it's again and again and again with passion. We need to love one another fervently. You know, this world doesn't love you. The world's going to sidle up to you. The world's going to look like it's your friend. It's going to act like your friend for a time, and then it's going to chew you up and spit you out. We need to hold on one to another because we're all we got in this world. And so we need to love the brethren fervently. All right, you're in chapter 1. Go to chapter 3 and verse number 8. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse number 8. Finally, brethren, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren. Be pitiful, be courteous. Now, be pitiful is not, woe is me, suffering for the Lord. That's not what that is. Be full of pity. And so you need to be showing pity and compassion to others. All right. You're in chapter number 3. Let's go to chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse number 8. And above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover a multitude of sins. And again, that word charity is that Greek word agape, which is the same word we find in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. We find charity there. And so this is saying we need to have fervent charity among ourselves. And again, we were talking about that just a minute. And then it says, for charity shall cover a multitude of sins. Isn't that true? Doesn't love cover a multitude of sins? You guys remember when you were first married, some of you? You remember how sweet he was? You remember that? Yeah, then he changed. Right? Guys, you remember how sweet she was? You remember how she used to bring you cupcakes and she used to bring you cookies and stuff like that? Oh, wait, maybe that's the other way around. Used to bring flowers and used to bring candies and used to bring little gifts and, fervent. We need to have that. We need to have that. Love shall cover a multitude of sins. Boy, when you woke up in the morning and you had that all night breath going on, love covers a multitude of sins. When you have that drool streak going down your cheek and going onto your pillow and it's kind of sticking to your pillow like this a little bit, love covers a multitude of sins. Okay? Just saying. Just saying. And so we see several, now I didn't even do an exhaustive list on loving the brethren, but we see throughout the scriptures that we are commanded to love the brethren. And so go back to 1 John chapter 3, look at verse number 11. Look at the first part again. For the message, this is the message that you heard from the beginning. Well, the beginning of what? Yeah, I was going to say from Christianity, the beginning of Christianity, which would be at the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So when Jesus is teaching and he says, love the brethren, that's when we heard it from the beginning. All right, that we should love the brethren. Now look at verse number 12. Not as Cain. Boy, did Cain love his brother? There's like 4 people on planet Earth, all right? I realize there might be hundreds of others, but name-wise in the Bible, there's 4 people. Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. One quarter of the population of the world hated the rest of the world. Look at it. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. Wherefore slew he him? Because his works were evil, and his brother's righteous. Let's take a look at it. Go to Genesis chapter 4. All right, so when it says, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, who would the wicked one be? Yeah, the devil. There's only 4 people on planet Earth, 4 named people on planet Earth. I'm going to keep saying 4 named people because there may be more between Cain and Abel. There's always the question, where did Cain get his wife? It's his sister. It wasn't a problem until the law. It's a problem now. So don't try to go back to Genesis chapter number 4 and live Genesis 4. We're in a different dispensation. It's not okay to marry your sister. Okay? Even in West Virginia, it's not okay to marry your sister. So it's not okay. But, you know, back in this time, they were the only people on earth. Were the offspring of Adam and Eve. All right, so Genesis chapter 4, starting verse number 1. Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I've gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was the tiller of the ground. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought the fruit of the ground in offering unto the Lord, and Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel's offering. Now, has Moses written the law yet? How did Abel know to bring the firstling of the flock and the fat thereof? How did he know that? Moses hadn't written the law yet. But who would have given that information to Adam, and then Adam would have disseminated that information down? God would have given it to him. Who wrote the law that he gave to Moses? Right? With his own finger. He wrote the Big Ten on the tablets. And so the Lord is the one that said, you need to bring the firsting of the flock and the fat thereof. By the way, the picture there is when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit and they covered themselves with fig leaves, was that accepted in the eyes of God? No. What did he do? He made them coats of skins. All right, so the implication there, we're not told, we're not given the grisly details, but the implication there is God slew a couple of animals to give those skins to Adam and Eve. And so it was a blood sacrifice that was required for Adam and Eve. And it's a blood sacrifice that was required between Cain and Abel. By the way, it's a blood sacrifice for you as well. Thank God that God shed his own blood for us, and that's the sacrifice for us. I am so thankful. But Adam brought of the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof, but Cain brought the fruit of the ground. Now, I want you to look at, again, go back to the fig leaves and go back to the coats of skins. All right? And so then when it says, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, so the Lord received the offering that Abel brought. Why? It was an offering of the same kind. Verse number 5, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Why would Cain be wroth? Again, there's only 4 named people on planet Earth. The law had been given down to Adam. Adam told Cain, being the eldest, and then he told Abel. So why was Cain wroth? Why is he jealous?
Because the Lord preferred Abel's offering over his.
All right, so why would
Because it was a blood sacrifice, right?
why would the Lord not receive Cain's sacrifice? And then why would Cain be wroth? Because the Lord didn't accept it. He tried to do it on his own.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. He worked the ground. He tilled the ground. He worked in the garden. He was a gardener. And so he said, yeah, I know what the law is, but I'm going to give it my way. Do you guys see a picture here? Is it okay to worship the Lord any way we want? No. Is it okay to worship the Lord any way we want according to the Scriptures? Yes. That's called liberty. We can worship the Lord as long as it doesn't violate the Scriptures. We can do anything. But as soon as it violates the Scriptures, that's no longer worshiping the Lord, and the Lord is going to reject that worship, and what's going to happen to us? We'll probably be the same as Cain. I remember years ago, I want to say it was our church, but you know how my memory is. Didn't we have a woman come in that did demon dancing? Gospel dancing.
In this church?
She came to our church.
Oh, it was before my time then, thank goodness.
Yeah. When we were over in Broadway, and it was before most of you came, so Betty would have been there.
She didn't do it.
Yeah, she didn't do it. She wanted to. Oh, the demon dancing was right around that same time we saw Pantano Baptist. Or is it Pantano Baptist?
That's Pantano Baptist.
Yeah, Pantano Baptist had a sign up saying demon dancing.
Oh, I remember that. Because I had thought about going to that church, and I saw that, and I said, I don't know why anything good.
Yeah, it was around that same time. It was the same time, and so I'm like, okay, this woman's going to come in and do gospel dancing at our church, and they're advertising demon dancing over at Pantano? No. So by the way, she never did, but can we do that in the Scriptures? All right, so somebody will say, well, David danced before the Lord. Well, if you look at the word is jump. He jumped. As a matter of fact, in Spanish, it's saltar. What is saltar? Do you remember? No. Saltar? It's to jump. All right? That's the word that's in the Spanish Bible, and when you go back to the Hebrew, it's he jumped, he leapt before the Lord.
It's different than dancing.
Yeah, dancing, it's, very sensual. I mean, think about it. You got two bodies, and they're going really close like this, and there's all kinds of bad stuff. So we're going to have that in church? David was by himself. However, it's still leaping. The word is he leapt before the Lord. Now, in the English Bible, they chose dance. But in the Hebrew, it's he leapt. It's clear as day. And like I said, even in other languages, they use to jump instead of to dance. Because danzar,
They translated to
don't ask me. Back in 1611, it must have meant the same thing. And in our time, it means something different. That's a pet peeve of my Greek instructor. Don't put today's English meaning on Bible words. Because the Bible wasn't even translated with the same meanings that we've perverted words to mean. Tolerate. Tolerate. We've changed the meaning of tolerate.
Yeah.
All right, the old school version of tolerate is I'm having to put up with what you're doing. Right? So I'm having to tolerate you. Your attitude, your actions, your manner of speech. Today, being tolerant means that we have to accept what they say. So my being tolerant means I have to accept what they say, what they do. So we've changed the meaning. And so again, when you're reading your King James Bible and you look at a word, conversation is a perfect example of that. Conversation doesn't mean having a conversation one-on-one or, in a room, in a group setting. It's not talking. All right? Conversation means your manner of life. That's why I say it every time. Because the English word, today's meaning of the English word is different. And so when we see dance in the Old Testament, then we need to go back to the original language and find out what it really means, and then realize that the King James translators, when they were looking at all the English words, that word meant the same thing back then. Don't put today's meaning on those words. David certainly was not sensual in front of everybody else.
That's a good thing to remember.
And so, that's why I bring up Greek words. That's why I say literally translated. That's why I say things like literally means. Because one Hebrew word can have 5 or 6 or 7 different English words. And it's the same with anything. Matter of fact, if you go to a dictionary and you look up a word, how many different words do you get? And we're just talking about English. And so we need to be careful about it. So that's why I bring things like this up. That in the original, I bring up the Greek, the Hebrew, especially in times when it could be confusing. Right? Or to help explain, like there's only one time in the Scriptures that a fellow citizen is ever used, that we looked at this morning. That's the only one time in the Scriptures that English word is used and that Greek word is used. And so we need to be able to, we need to have a teacher or a preacher that's able to bring stuff like that to light and explain that, which is, my job, and that's why I'm going to school, racking my brains. Here I am 61 and I'm still in school. And so, and like I said, that's a huge pet peeve with my Greek instructor. He's all over that. Don't put today's meaning on those words back then. That's why we need to look it up. That's why I've been mentioning in the past, and I'm getting to the place where I'm going to start seriously mentioning about having that class on the Blue Letter Bible, where when you look at the Greek and the Hebrew, and we're just going to look at Blue Letter Bible, and it's going to have, this is the aorist tense, and I'm going to explain that. Because when you see those things, you need to understand what it's saying. And so, again, that's going back to the Greek and the Hebrew. But then you can look up a word on Blue Letter Bible, and when you click on that word, you can see how it's broken down, literally translated. And this is the tense, and how many people it's talking about, and what person it's talking about. You'll understand what that's saying. And so, like I said, I've been announcing kind of playfully that I'm going to have that class, but I'm going to get serious here. Real quickly. I'm going to start asking questions like, do you want it in the evening? Do you want it on a Saturday? Because some people's schedules are, and not everybody's retired. And so I'll be asking, what would be the best time and different things like that. But that's why I'm having these conversations or having these announcements and would like to teach that, because my job is to make you as smart as I am. That's my job. And then when you're as smart as I am, then I have to go to school and get smarter so that I can make you smarter. Right? That's my job. And some of you are still a long way away. Long. All right, Art.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the concept of what the Bible is calling love.
Mm-hmm.
And translate that into something about how I am to relate to someone else. And love, has, in my mind anyway, the idea of affection.
Mm-hmm. That's one.
Yeah, so I think that I'm too limited in terms of what is trying to be communicated.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to verse number 11 real quick. All right. We'll catch up with Cain and Abel here in just a second. But let's go back to verse number 11 in 1 John chapter 3. And it says that we should love one another. Now, the biblical word for this love is agape. Right. All right. So turn in your Bibles to 1 Corinthians 13. All right. I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to make an example, Art. So bear with me on that. I'm going to get there. 1 Corinthians 13. All right, are you there? 1 Corinthians 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am a sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. If I can speak Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic, by the way, because there's a portion of the scriptures that's in Aramaic, if I can speak those perfectly, and I can quote 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse number 1 in Greek by memory, and I have not love, I have not charity, what am I like? Well, look at the verse. What am I like? Yeah. Anybody bang anything on brass? You know what sounding brass is? The old fire engine or the old fire bells in the fire station. Ding, 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 ding. Is that a pleasant sound? No. All right, and then what's the next thing that I would sound like? Tinkling cymbals. That's pleasant, isn't it? All right, so without charity, without love, that's what that's saying. It doesn't matter how much language I can speak. Without love, that's what it sounds like. All right, look at verse number 2. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. If I'm the most spiritual person ever walked on the planet, And I could look at Mount Lemon and I could say, Mount Lemon, be removed. And Mount Lemon would pick up out of its roots and it would fly towards the Pacific Ocean because that's the closest one. And I had not charity. What does it say I am?
Nothing.
It's worth nothing. My faith is worth nothing. Now, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. All right? Now, I don't have a lot, but if I give it all to somebody and I don't have any love, what good is it? What good is it? Now, here's the definition of love. Look at verse number 4. Charity suffereth long, is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never fails. So what's the definition of love? If you ever want to know the definition, just go to those verses and study those words out. By the way, break out your blue letter Bible and click on each one of those words and find out what each one of those words means. Now, unfortunately, I'm doing this off of the top of my head, so I can't go down and tell you exactly what each one of these words mean. I can give you a rough idea. Long suffering, suffereth long. What does that mean? Yeah, you go back to the old definition of tolerate. Okay, long suffering. Now, now let me give you an example on how we can do this with the brothers, with the brethren. Okay, one to another. All right, let me give you an example of that. I am going to just take the first 3 verses. All right, we're not going to get into the definition. All right, here we go. As the pastor, everything that I know I'm going to bestow to you. And I'm not going to expect one thing back from you. I'm not going to expect you to give me a paycheck. I'm not going to expect you to give me an offering. I'm not going to expect you to say, thank you, Pastor. I'm not going to expect you to even acknowledge that I'm giving you this information. So when love teaches, is it expects nothing back in return. I am not expecting anything. All right, the second one. Though I have the gift of prophecy, though I'm the most spiritual man on planet Earth, though I have all faith, and I can say to Mount Lemon, you're gone. The way that I can do this, the way that I can show my faith, and when I show my faith to you, I expect nothing in return. I don't expect you to have the same faith that I do. That's not the expectation. I am doing it because the Lord told me to do it. I'm doing it because I love the Lord. I'm doing it because I have faith in the Lord. Now, I'm doing it for your benefit, but I expect nothing in return. That's loving the brethren. Look at verse number 3. Though I bestow all of my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, I give you all that I am, and I give you my possessions. The way that I can do it in love is without any expectation back of you giving my stuff back, of you giving me your stuff. No expectation whatsoever. And so this idea of love is you do what the Bible tells you to do with no expectation of a return. So when it tells us in 1 John chapter 3 and verse number 11, you heard from the beginning that you should love one another. You should give everything that you are to one another without expecting anything back. That's the Bible definition of love. And that's the Bible illustration or the example of love. Isn't that what the Lord did? Didn't He give everything that He was on the cross, and he gave his life with no expectation. All he said was, believe in that. He would have done it if you were the only person on planet Earth. By the way, you would have had to beat him. You would have had to pluck his beard. You would have had to spit on him. You would have had to plate the crown of thorns on him. You would have had to nail him to the cross. You would have had to crucify him. You would have had to bury him so that he could rise again for you. And he'd have gladly done it for you because your soul is that important to him. That's love. He gave everything he was without any expectation. And so once again, that's what loving is, and it's a hard concept. Because when I do something for you, what's the natural man's expectation?
Lisa, thank you.
Yes. Human expectation is at least gratitude. But biblical, godly, agape love does not expect gratitude. It expects nothing. So you're to give your whole self one to another. You're to give what you are, who you are, to everybody. And by the way, didn't we look at this morning? Love the Lord thy God with all and all and all. And then there's one other place where there's a fourth all. And then what's the second command? Like unto the first? Love your neighbor as yourself. And who's your neighbor? Well, we find that out in the Good Samaritan. The world. You're to give yourself to the world, to everybody, without any expectation. All right? Wrap your mind around that one. You're not gonna. You're not gonna. But that's the biblical definition and the biblical example of what love is, one to another. We don't even do that here with the very few of us that there are. And yet that's the biblical definition of love. And so when it tells us here, love the brethren, give your all, don't expect a thing.
So that should be in our prayer, the Holy Spirit examine us and see if what we're doing and how we should.
Okay, yes, that's part of it. But we're not going to be able to have this kind of love without Him.
No, that's for sure.
So our prayer ought to be, Lord, help me love. That ought to be our prayer. Not examine me. That's certainly part of it. But the first basic prayer ought to be, Lord, help me love, because we're not going to be able to do this kind of love without Him. As a matter of fact, and not anything bad in the Lord's Prayer in John chapter 17, but He says, if it could, let this cup pass from me. He didn't want to go to the cross. He didn't want to suffer that. However, He did. And by the way, there was never any question that He was gonna or He was not gonna. It was already settled in heaven. He was gonna. But for our sakes, He wrote that in there. He said it out loud. Matter of fact, He says in His prayer, Lord, you and I talk all the time, but I'm saying this out loud for their sakes. And so I think our first prayer needs to be, Lord, help me love. Or love through me. That might even be a better prayer, love through me. Oh yeah, there's no expectation whatsoever. So I don't even see rejection. You know what I see? When I'm teaching and I'm doing what I'm doing, what's my expectation? Nothing. Let me ask, this is not a condemning question, but how many of you came up this morning and said that was a good message, Pastor? One. All right? So, well, was I up here having a pity party? Oh, no. And by the way, how many of you come up to me and say, Pastor, that was a really good message? All right, how many times do I preach in a week? Right, 3 times a week. How many weeks are there in a year?
52.
How many years have we been around? 15? All right, so 15, do the math. Am I doing this for thank you? Nope. So now I'm not saying that to get thank yous. All right, I'm not saying it to get it. I'm just illustrating, giving kind of a crude example of what this agape love is. I don't expect a thank you. I don't expect a good job. I don't expect that. Here's what I do expect: obedience. Okay? And by the way, not obedience to me, but obedience to the Word of God. That's my only expectation. I preach the Word of God. I expect you to act on it. And by the way, I'm not going to come check on you. Hey, did you hear what I said? Why ain't you doing it? I'm already in the living room. That's right. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 4. Let's finish that up. Yes, sir. So we're in Genesis 4, down at verse number 6. I was asking the question, why art thou wroth? Let me illustrate being wroth. Yes. By the way, it's an anger. It's not just being mad, it's an anger. Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? It's almost like Cain standing there with the platter of vegetables, giving it to the Lord like this, and the Lord says, no, and he does this. Why is thy countenance fallen? He probably threw the platter down on the ground. Fine. Probably kicked a tomato. By the way, have you heard that tomato is fruit? That's knowledge. You know what wisdom is? Not putting it in fruit salad. Verse number 7, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So the Lord is speaking to Cain and saying, if you do it right, it's good. If you do it wrong, that's bad. Verse number 8, Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. Why did they get mad? Why did Cain rise up and slay Abel? Do you think Abel was like, mine was accepted and yours wasn't? Neener. Do you think that he neenered him? No, Cain was already angry, and now he's humiliated because the Lord said, if you do well, that's good. If you do not well, that's bad.
Like any child being
Corrected.
corrected, and they don't like it.
Yeah, so he went up. By the way, what was the weapon that Cain used against Abel? Where do you get that?
It doesn't say. It doesn't say. Well, just assume because he's in a field, right? And so
Does it even say they're in a field?
no, it doesn't. You just assume that.
Yeah, they're in the field.
Yep, it says they were in the field.
No, it
All right, but why not a corn stalk?
That's not gonna do,
Why not beat him over the head with an ear of corn?
that's not gonna do anything.
It'd take him an hour.
How do you know? How do you? It doesn't say how long it took him to slay him.
No.
All right, the assumption is, and by the way, I've mentioned this in the past too, read the Bible without prejudice, without assumptions, without presumptions. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say the weapon that Cain used.
I never thought of it.
All right, now, here's just a little thought exercise, and then I'm going to be done, okay? Here's a little thought exercise. How much knowledge did the Lord lay on Adam?
All of it. Until he,
All knowledge
all knowledge.
of everything. So much so that in one day, Adam was able to name every single animal that came across him. Matter of fact, in less than one day, every single animal came by, boom, 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 boom. Adam was able to name them.
Yep.
All right? I have a hard time thinking up of a name. Like, what's your new password?
I don't know.
Coming up with a password is hard. But he named every single animal in less than a day, because later that day, that's when God caused him to sleep and Eve was created. So how much knowledge did Adam have? Do you think they had just rudimentary tools? Or do you think that he had Makita 24-volt drills?
Oh, they didn't have that.
Why do you say that? Only 12 volts. Why do you say that?
There wasn't
Why do you say that?
another something.
Another assumption. We don't know what the pre-flood world was like,
Right.
because everything was upheaved. It was so advanced that Noah was able to build an ark, a big one, so tight that it held up against the Lord's wrath.
How long did it rain?
It rained 40 days and 40 nights, but he was on the deep for 150 days or 180 days.
But even just through the 40 days of rain, it held up. And
But we're talking about the windows of heaven opening, and we're talking about the fountains of the deep breaking open. So you're getting a bloosh from heaven, and you're getting a bloosh from underneath. So much so that the whole world is filled up with water.
yeah, there wasn't any.
All right, so let's not say that these were cavemen.
That's true.
All right, let's put assumptions aside. He very well could have had a gun. He very well could have had some kind of projectile weapon. It could have been a rock. He could have had a knife. He could have choked him. He could have grabbed a corn stalk and wrapped it around his neck and strangled him.
Yeah.
He could have hit him so hard that his head hit a rock on the ground.
We just have faith that he killed.
All right, so again, let's not read into the scriptures what's not there. So he rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is thy brother? Said, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not, he's a liar.
Yeah.
You know, that's why back in verse number 12 in 1 John, it says, Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one. Who's the liar of liars? Satan is. And so go back with me back to 1 John chapter 3 and we'll be done. Look at verse number 12. Again, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. Don't be, listen church, don't be influenced by Satan and hate one another. All right? The command in the scriptures, and we've seen it several times, is to love one another. And in two of those times, it was to love one another fervently. So that's give everything that you are, everything, how the Lord loves through you to everybody without expectation fervently. That means a bunch of times with passion, without expectation, not even of a thank you, not even of a, hey, good job. That's how we're to love. Not as Cain of that wicked one, so don't let the wicked one influence you. We need to love one another, and I mentioned this before, especially in this world, we need to cling one to another. As brothers and sisters in Christ, we need to cleave to one another because this world will chew us up and spit us out if we're not careful. All right, questions about 11 and 12 or love? We had that whole section on. I was going to be done by 5.